Would I move out the country without a job lined up and little savings? Well, actually, I did. I did twice. The first time that I moved out the country, I moved to Thailand in 2018. I had visited Thailand in, I think, February or March 2018, and I planned this trip with my sister. I was really in my travel era then. Like I was going to so many different countries because previously I had quit my job and I started freelancing. I moved back home. So I was always just kind of like hustling and getting money and then taking a trip when I could. So I went to Thailand in February 2018. I went to Chiang Mai and I fell in love. Like, it was a dream of mine to go to Thailand because I was fascinated with Buddhism and the culture and the food and just what I've read about or seen. So once I had to leave Chiang Mai to go to Phuket, I had this visceral feeling in my body. I started crying because I wanted to stay in Chiang Mai. Like, it felt like home to me. It felt so peaceful, so soothing. It felt right in my body. I never had felt that way in a place, just so calm and at peace. I started crying, and I know it sounds dramatic, but like I literally was having a reaction to how I felt in that place. I had previously collected some data from some people when I was in Chiang Mai. I met hella cool people from all over, some Thai people, some American people, but everyone was saying how easy it was to move to Thailand and to teach English. You'll find a job easily. And I was just like, I don't know. It seems kind of risky to move to a country just banking on the fact that you may or may not get a job. I got back home in March and I began the process of like figuring out how I was going to move to Thailand. I joined Facebook groups. I looked at forums. I looked at blogs. I messaged people, all that. So I began the process of selling my furniture, selling my car. Like, I told myself I wasn't going to tell my parents I was moving until like maybe 2 months before that because I didn't want them to speak fear onto my plans because it sounded crazy. Going to move to a new country with not a lot of savings, nobody there, and I don't have a job. Be for real. I got my TEFL. I started selling my stuff. And I felt like even though I was nervous, it was the right thing to do for me. I was ready to take that leap into the next chapter. So before that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to plan a little backpacking escapade. I'm going to go throughout Southeast Asia, head up some different places. So I went to Vietnam, got robbed there. Last day there too. Went to Malaysia, went to Bali, got food poisoning there. Went to Singapore, and then I landed in Chiang Mai. Before getting to Chiang Mai, I was like, you know, the most important thing to me is housing. Obviously, I can't really secure an apartment without being there, but I heard about Workaway. So I signed up for Workaway. It's a membership where you can provide a service in exchange for housing. So you could work at a hostel, you could work at a farm, you could teach English. There's all these different ways you can get accommodations and food in exchange for work. So I signed up for that so that I could work at a hostel for 2 weeks, giving me some buffer, you know, so that I can find an apartment, giving me some buffer so that I can find a job. I did have the teaching job online, but it wasn't making me a lot of money. Probably only a couple hundred a month, to be honest. I can't remember, but it was not paying nobody's rent with whatever I was making. I got there on a Wednesday. Then on Friday, I had an interview with this school. I had to read a book to the kindergarten class, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do my best. I don't have experience teaching in a class. Like, I'm going to do my best. Monday, I get an email saying, congratulations, you got the job. So I was like, hey, I got that job. Like, God wanted me to win. Like, I was supposed to be in Chiang Mai. I was supposed to be there. And it was evident in everything that was leading up to that point. Mind you, I had less than $1,000. Like when I left the US, I had less than 1,000. So I was spending money going to all these cities and whatnot. But your girl was low on cash. By the time I got to Thailand, I don't know how much it was. It couldn't have been more than 500, to be honest. But I got the job, and then I was able to secure housing shortly after that. So yes, I moved to a country with not a lot of money, without a job, knowing nobody, and I thrived there for a year and a half. I stayed for a year and a half. I only left because I just felt like it was time to do something different in life, and then the pandemic happened. So would I do that again? Probably not. As a almost 30-year-old, I would have to have more plans aligned. But one thing about me is I always have a plan A, B, C, D, E. Like I am spontaneous, but I need to have an emergency plan, a backup plan for every backup plan. Because when you take such a big risk, like moving out of the country, and you want to thrive, you got to make sure that you can make that work, you know? Even if you have a credit card, like I had a credit card. I only had $1,000 limit at the time, but like that was like my plan Z. I wouldn't recommend using credit to sustain yourself. I would recommend having savings and having some side hustles, at least to sustain yourself, to make whatever is a livable wage. Like in Thailand, my expenses were less than 500. My apartment was 150. My motorbike was $75 a month. My food ranged anywhere from a dollar to $5. So realistically, I could sustain myself from my side hustles, even if I didn't get a job. So I think it's important to have things lined up. If you're going to move out the country, you need to at least have 3 to 6 times what your expenses would be in savings. I didn't have that, but I also am somebody that always has a lot of plans, so I'm gonna figure it out. I also moved to Portugal without a job. That's something that I recommend doing at all. That one was really, really tough. It was stressful. But again, I had, plans lined up. So I always take care of my accommodation before I moved to another country. Like that was always what was taken care of. I used Flatio to book my accommodation at this co-living space prior to getting to Lisbon. So that was taken care of. I did have some savings. I had more savings going to Lisbon than I did moving to Thailand. Originally, when I submitted my stuff, I had a lot more savings, but I invested some of it. So I really only had maybe like 4,000 in savings, which is not a lot moving to some place like Portugal, because your monthly expenses are going to be more than 1,000. So that was only gonna last me, like, if I was being frugal as hell, maybe 4 months. If I was being frugal, very frugal, but I was running out of money. Again, teaching English online wasn't enough to really sustain me, but I was applying to jobs and I was living in co-living spaces to save money on rent. My rent was only like $300, I think, a month, $300 to $400 a month. So that helped significantly, and it's the sacrifice I had to make, but I could not live comfortably. So if you're going to move abroad without a job, make sure you have savings. Take it from somebody that did it twice. You don't want to be uncomfortable in another country financially, on top of being uncomfortable because it's new and foreign. Like, it's just not smart, because then you're going to end up leaning on people to help sustain your lifestyle, whether that's family, whether that's the government of the country, things of that nature. And you don't want to set yourself up for failure in that way. I have an adventurous spirit and I'm a figure it out attitude, but it put me through a lot of unnecessary stress because I couldn't enjoy the newness of a country because I was worried about how I was going to make it work. So I was grinding so much and burning myself out, which I could easily just have stayed in the US to do. I got to Portugal in July, and then I landed a job at a startup in November. So it took me about 4 months to get a job. And when I tell you I was like, I needed that job at that exact time because I wouldn't have been able to sustain myself anymore. That's how it worked out. I do think it's possible to move abroad without a job, but you have to have savings and a plan and maybe a side hustle. I don't think it's wise at all. In this day and age, in this recession, in this economy, I don't think it's wise at all. And I've done it twice. I've I've done it twice. So I've had that experience. I lived through it. I've gotten to the other side. And now I value having comfort more. Financial comfort and not putting myself through unnecessary stress. So you can't move abroad without a job. You can find a job depending on what country it is. I would say if it's United Arab Emirates or if it's South Korea or Japan or Thailand or even Vietnam, you'll be able to find a teaching job. And probably even a lot of countries in South America, you'll be able to find a teaching job. If you're moving to a place like Portugal, where it's hard to find a job if you don't speak the language and the wages aren't matching what the cost of living is, I would not recommend, most European countries to move there if you don't have a job. I would not. I would not at all. Mm-mm.